Hi everyone, I'm Dan Albers and welcome to USBN Sports, where I'm joined here with the new head coach of the UC Clermont Cougars, Steve Ellis. And Steve, how does that sound, new coach of the UC Clermont Cougars?
It sounds really good. I'm happy to be there.
Talk a little bit about the path that you had to get here. You started off at Anderson High School, played basketball there, and you had Phil Sinkovich as your coach. Talk a little bit about playing at Anderson and also the influence that Phil had for you.
Yeah, Phil was our basketball coach. You played there as well, and we were able to, both you and I were able to go down to Sinclair College and play basketball there. And then I came back and coached basketball with Frank Brandy for 19 years at Anderson. And then I was lucky enough to get the head coaching job at Marymount High School, and I was the head coach there for 7 years. Took a year off and saw this opportunity and jumped at it, and I was lucky to get the job.
Talk a little bit about that. You were with Frank Brandy, you said, for 19. Did that help prepare you to become a head coach? Obviously, as you went to Marymount, did that help you a lot to become the head coach?
It did, and I was able to learn all the ins and outs of responsibilities that off-the-court stuff that you do as a head coach that a lot of people don't see, and just the undertaking that you have to have as a head coach. And so it prepared me all those years for this position.
Wasn't it hard, too, being that at Anderson High School, that's your alma mater? Obviously you want to win all your games, but you're there for Anderson, and did that make it sometimes a little bit, you got a little overzealous or a little too excited sometimes?
Yeah, it did, but I understand the position I was in, and I knew that I had a job to do, and the kids that I was coaching, trying to make the best for them for their opportunity.
It was a very, very long time you were there. What did you say, 19 years?
19 years.
That's a pretty long time to be at thing, and I think, as we've talked before in the past, that it was time for you to try to move on, and you did. You said you went to Marymount High School. Talk a little bit about that. You went from a pretty big school in Anderson and going to a smaller school in Marymount. How was that for you to try to go from, I don't know, about competition or whatever you want to talk about? Was it a big, drastic difference for you?
Well, the quality of play is the same, just about. I mean, there's a little bit better talent, but as becoming the head coach at Marymount, it was a big undertaking that they had not been successful for quite a few years. And when you become the head coach at a school like Marymount, you're in charge of not just the varsity, but the JV, the freshman, the junior high, and the sixth grade select league. So there was a lot of time spent building a program over the course of 7 years, and we were fortunate enough to have some winning seasons and won the league one year.
I mean, but you didn't do all that stuff at Anderson. You were more of the assistant coach. So was it kind of like when you went in, it was kind of like baptism by fire? You had to you knew about it and you had to try to just figure it out on your own?
Yeah, it's a little different scenario because at Anderson you're mainly just a high school. You don't have a whole lot of involvement down at Nagel. You're still involved in the summer stuff and in the summer camps for the kids, but it was a totally different realm at Marymount, and I was appreciative of it because it was a lot of responsibility, and it helped me grow as a coach into all the ins and outs of building a program and sustaining it for the long run for winning tradition.
So you left there, you took a year off, but let's before you even got to that path, you did have a little bit of college experience. You went to Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about, I mean, no matter what you say, anybody that goes on to the college level and whatever level you play in, the experience has got to be great, and that's probably have some, I'm sure, influence on some of the things you might even do now as a coach or you've done before.
Yeah, and it's not just the playing part, but the influence of the coaches that I had. Don Cundiff at Sinclair. You mentioned Phil Sinkovich was a huge influence on me, and then coaching under Frank Brandy. So it was three kind of unique styles, and I was able to take a little bit of all their styles and kind of coach the way I wanted to coach once I got to Marymount.
You go from a high school level where you didn't have to recruit, and now you're coming into the college level and you have to recruit. Being named the coach just a couple weeks ago, does that hurt or help you that you were just named the coach, and are you behind in recruiting, or how does that all work?
Well, yeah, I am behind a little bit, but we've been attacking the recruiting trail as hard as we can the last 2 weeks, and having the experience of coaching around the tri-state for the last 25 plus years, I know just about every high school coach around, and so as soon as I got the job, I was contacting coaches directly, personally, and then I sent out a mass email to all the ADs around the tri-state and the head coaches, and I've got a really nice response the last couple of weeks, and we're starting to get some good attention and hopefully get some good recruits in there.
Is that, you think, your biggest challenge is the recruiting and trying to figure all that out? Do you think that is your biggest challenge so far early on, only being in 2 weeks?
Yeah, and that's mainly the only thing I've been concentrating on is the recruiting, because they basically have about a half a team, maybe 5 or 6 guys coming back, and so I basically got to come in and bring some, hopefully some really good talent so we can get back on the winning track. And so that's been a challenge in itself, but trying to get in touch with some of these coaches, and I know some of the players from coaching over at Marymount for 7 years. I know some of the players that we're recruiting. The one thing that I took advantage of the 1 year that I was off was I was able to go to different high schools and watch their practices, and so I learned some other details on what coaches do in practice and how they treat their players and what drills they do and so forth. But at the same time, I was able to look at some players, so I got to see them firsthand in practice.
What are some of the coaches that you've dealt with, playing against or coached against? Are they pretty receptive, and are they saying, oh, hey, that's awesome, I'll start sending my kids your way? Or how's the reception been?
Well, I think all the coaches that I've talked to have been overwhelmingly nice to me, and they're super happy for me, and they know what type of player that I like to coach. And they know what I'm looking for, and a quality kid, and a kid that plays hard, and a kid that is willing to play defense. And so they know whether or not to send a kid my way. And so I already have my thoughts and ideas out there, and these coaches know that. So I've already talked to some coaches where they said, well, this kid may not be a fit, and I've talked to other coaches who said, yeah, he's exactly the type of player that you like, and so we're anxious to get them in there.
That's what I was getting ready to ask you about the recruiting, is like what kind of kids you look for. I obviously know, being around you, what you're going to look for.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of put in perspective, it's kind of like when Mick Cronin took over at UC.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of took over a team that there was not a lot, and you probably don't feel like you have a lot. So are there some instances where a kid might be a tween? You know what I mean? How does that play into the factor?
Well, it does play a factor, and it's kind of the good news, bad news, where it's good to come in, at the point where they had a couple losing seasons, and the roster's kind of depleted, so the bar's not set so high. But at the same time, now you're really going to have to try to build this thing up, and rather quickly, and we want to win right away, and that's the whole idea, is to get as many wins as possible and to move on to what they have at this level, a national championship, which is the ultimate goal.
Is it also probably more difficult to try to recruit kids out of town? Just for your first year, maybe next year might be a little bit different.
It is, and Clermont College has grown so much over the years, and if anybody hasn't been there, you need to go there. And we have a dome there, a gymnasium, and
a little bubble.
A bubble, yeah, like we call it the Cougar Dome now. Yeah. So, it's a really nice, clean, safe campus. That's obviously an extension of the main campus down in Clifton, but it is hard when you're thinking about players, and I've been getting phone calls of players from out of town, and there are no dorms on campus.
Yeah, right.
So it is basically a commuter. So the good news about me, coaching all these years and all these coaches around, these are kids that are within 30 miles, and so understanding that they're going to be commuting back and forth. I think at some point they may have dorms on campus, but right now they don't. And so we're not opposed to a kid to come from Louisville or from upstate in Ohio or anywhere, but if that's the case, then we got to try to figure out what their living arrangements are.
There are benefits, as we said. It's for a lot of kids in the city. It's close, beautiful. It's become a lot bigger campus than I remember.
Right.
Actually, when Phil started.
Correct.
A lot better. They have won a national championship, I believe.
Correct. 2007, I think.
And some great players that have played there. One guy that I know in particular, Stephon Dunn, who's I think in the Hall of Fame. He's on the wall.
Yep.
Great ball player.
Yep.
A couple of them, one that Phil's had. I know we had Jeff Click.
Yep.
There was another.
Scott Nelson.
Scott Nelson.
Yep. Yep.
So there have been some great athletes that have gone through that college.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea. And we want to get some. We want Clermont to be more recognized. Not just for basketball, but for the academics there. And the level that we play at, when you compare it to the Division II and III level, not to say that we're cheap, using as a that kind of type of word, but but the cost is so much
Right.
less, and the quality of the campus is better at Clermont, and our schedule, our competition is better than it would be at a Division III school.
You know, the other thing too is that you have to do in the short amount of time is you have to assemble a coaching staff. You have to kind of figure out your roster. You have players that played last year. You kind of talk to them, kind of get a feel of what they're doing. Have you addressed the players that were on last year, and do you have a coaching staff?
Yeah, I've become really good with texting some of these guys. That's the form of communication now. So and last night, as a matter of fact, we had a basketball open house for the guys that are currently on the roster coming back wanting to play, and then we were fortunate enough to get 7 or 8 potential recruits coming in to play.
Good.
And it was good to kind of interact them together and to talk about academics and to get them, and then they actually played. So it was good, and they got a good feel for the gym, and we're going to be doing some things as we move forward. This coming Saturday is the alumni game, which is a big event, and we try to invite not only the current players but potential recruits in to talk to his Stephon Duns and you know those Scotty Nelsons of the like, so that they can get a feel for the program and hopefully want to continue the tradition.
So with that being said, does that kind of help with your recruiting then too? Is when these guys come in, they're going to see all these alumni coming back, and they're going to see the big activities that you do. And I believe, isn't it 25 years that Phil's had?
Yeah, it was. They just finished the 25th year, and you know it's pretty amazing how Phil took it from the ground floor, and Phil had the experience not just of coaching at Anderson, but he coached college before that up in Owens Tech up in Toledo, and he was working basically out of his car and trying to find gyms around the city, high schools.
They didn't have anything back
They
then.
didn't have anything now, and so it's I don't want to say it's easier now for me, but we feel very fortunate that he did all that grunt work to get it to where the program is now, and to have the bubble Cougar Dome and a place to practice and a place to play for games.
So I'm sure a lot of people out there, I'm not real sure of what they are, like, Cincinnati State is more of a junior college, NAI. What are you guys considered? Is it NAIA, junior college? What is it?
Well, we are not junior. We're in between junior college and NAIA, and if we're fortunate, in a couple of years we will be NAIA, which is basically a step below Division I in some respects. So our schedule, as I was alluding to before, our schedule is all over the place. We will play a couple of junior colleges, but our main focus is on Division III, Division II, and in a couple of Division I schools.
Well, how do I guess I don't understand either. So is it Division I and then the next step below is NAIA, and then
Correct.
It's Division II, III, or whatever?
Yeah, basically, NAIA is basically a 2-year program, so which is the difference between going to a Division II school or Division III school. So NAIA is basically a 2-year program. Then after that, you're done. You can move on to play somewhere else or move on with your career. So, but the big difference with NAIA is that they're able to give the student athletes full scholarships.
So did you say you did hire a staff? Do you have guys now at this moment, or are you still working on it?
I'm still working on it. I do have my number one man who was with me at Marymount, Doug Ast. He's on board with me, and he's kind of my right-hand man, and so I'm excited about that. And I got to get a couple other guys that I've been talking to, and it's just a whole different realm of how you go about planning things and the practices and the games and the overnight trips and the long bus rides.
Right, and they are very long bus rides. I mean, people don't realize what you guys got to go through as far as the coach. And speaking of that, it's pretty important to say that you have to have a good supportive family and friends, and your wife Donna and your kids Sammy and Abby and Cameron have been, I know just personally through you, have been very supportive of you, and you have to have that to be a basketball coach, and they've just been phenomenal for you.
It's been, I feel very fortunate. They've been so supportive, and I don't know who was more upset about me not coaching last year, myself or my family, but it was a good break. But I'm very fortunate, and this is a whole new chapter for us and for me and for my family, and the half-hour bus rides in high school games is
a lot longer.
Longer than that now. So I'm trying to help with the scheduling process and trying to have more weekend games, so that we're not getting hoping too late on
Right.
on
On a night school
weeknight,
yeah.
right, school night especially.
Well, and the other thing that you have, it's really, really huge, is you have the support of former coach Phil Sinkovich, but also you have a great AD in Brian Sullivan, and that's
Yeah.
got to help a tremendous amount too.
It does, and Brian has. I've watched, not only Phil from the start of the program in I think it was 1990, but I think Brian Sullivan's been there 10 years, and what he has done with the program and how far he's taken it is amazing. I think when he started, there was just
Four
both
or five sports maybe,
if that, and it's grown, and now they have both men and women's soccer. They're going to get a soccer
Volleyball.
field. They have a nice baseball area, and obviously you got the Cougar Dome, and they've added multiple other sports, and it's amazing. It's a legit college,
Right.
and the experience is unbelievable, and the more sports you have, obviously the more students you're bringing into the university, so that's a good thing.
Talk a little bit about, real quick, your time frame and what your schedule's like. I know with you're trying to bring kids in, when do the kids have to make their decision? Is there like a national letter signing a 10, or how does that all work as far as making sure that things, and I know just being involved when I was involved with Cincinnati State, that your roster's going to change because of grades probably at some point. I don't know.
We're
if it
hoping
will.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if it will at Cincinnati, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying I'm just accustomed that. Do you also then have to think about when you're recruiting about kids that academically are right there?
Right, and we've come up with obviously our ideals for recruiting, but knowing that we're a little lower on the chain of the talent pool, and so we kind of have to wait to see how things play out, and everything kind of falls downhill, so to speak, but hopefully in a good way. And we have your Division I talent and moving down, but the recruiting part is a crucial one that we're anxious about. But the timing of it, yeah, we do like a letter to try to get them to commit to us. But at the end of the day, it's about them showing up for class in August and knowing them. So we have a real good idea. We'll have a real good idea by the end of May what our roster is going to look like.
I mean, you pretty much want to have that for you,
Yeah.
for peace of mind.
Peace of mind, yeah. But that doesn't mean it couldn't change in between May and August, because it certainly could, and it probably will. The whole idea, and we have some goals, as a team wise, and I have some goals personally wise with that. Obviously we want to win, we want to build a tradition, and we want to win a national championship. But the other thing is, and I kind of say it half tongue in cheek, is we don't want to have two team pictures. And what happens is, you take the team picture beginning of the year, and then you lose them for grades. Halfway through the season, you got to try to recruit players to come in. So we're trying to make that a part of our recruiting to not just get great basketball players, but to get great kids and get great kids that care about their schooling as much as basketball, so that we don't have to worry about them dropping off midway through the season.
Well, another thing that's pretty exciting, I'm sure for you, but also for one of your former players, and Terry Sparks is a player that has played there, and he didn't play this past year, but it's got to be exciting for you. You kind of know what he's about, and he seemed to shine when you were his coach. And is he pretty excited about that?
He's super excited. He was one of the first ones I called, besides my family and friends, and he was there last night, and I think he's going to be a great ambassador for me, and he knows what the expectations are, and I think I'm really looking forward to working with him again. It's great to be united with him, and he's such a great kid and a great talent. So I think that it's going to be a great time for us with him and me.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we actually made it through this. I didn't think we were going to do it.
We did it.
But I know you got a lot of family and friends that are very, very excited for you. I've seen them all over. They know me that I know you, and they just think it's just an absolute awesome thing that you're doing this. And I know one thing, that my dad and your dad are looking down smiling right now.
There's no question about it. We've talked about that, and once the season comes around, they're going to be sitting over there watching us, and it's, that they're not here in person, but they're here in our hearts, so
absolutely,
it's all good.
Yeah, it is. So I'm Dan Albers, and Steve Ellis, the new basketball coach at UC Clermont, and we'll try to get possibly some other interviews during the season and